welcome back to number 8 in our World Explorers mapping series, and we're moving right along on the map, and I think this is number 8. We just worked on Africa in number 7, and you can see we did quite a bit of work, including the deserts, some rivers, lakes, mountains. The one thing I didn't do is I want to add a little bit of coastline, like we've been doing with our other continents so far. See how we did that in Australia and Asia. Let's just put a little bit of blue along that coastline. Okay, and I'm going to set my timer. I'll set it for about 12 minutes. This one might take a little longer as we get into North America. But I just want to do a little bit of that African coastline. And obviously you can work on that too at your leisure. Okay, so now today we're going to talk about probably the most famous explorer of all, Christopher Columbus, and his first trip going into the... what he wanted to do was find a water route from Europe over to Asia. And he was an Italian explorer working for the King and Queen of Spain, and he was hoping to discover a shorter route rather than having to travel around Africa or through the land routes already established. His theory was that he could sail west and come out in Japan and China in this area over here, which would be a much shorter route and easier. The one thing he didn't count on was he didn't know about this large landmass of North America. Okay, so that was a big obstacle, obviously, in the way. So now, I guess he did probably discover what they call the New World. Of course, that's probably... we can say he discovered the New World for the Europeans who didn't know about it, but I think it would be remiss not to mention that all these areas were already populated by people, Native Americans throughout North America and South America, and that was a bit of a problem for those people, because many times those explorers did bring on some suffering through either mistreatment of the indigenous people or sometimes bringing disease that was not, immunities weren't available to these people that some of the diseases coming across. So there was same thing in Australia. A lot of indigenous people suffered. Africa. Many of these continents had that issue as these explorers continued into the new areas. Okay, so I want to just mention that as we go forward. You can see Columbus's route took him from Europe. He was a great navigator, and he followed the route. Let's just look at his route real quick. He did a total of about 4 different trips, but you've probably heard that poem that says in 1492 Columbus sailed the ocean blue, and that's about the year of his first voyage, 1492. And you can see it took him from Europe, started right about here, went down through the Canary Islands. We'll label those islands. Let's label them right now before we forget. These are the Canary Islands right here. That was a good place to get some supplies. Fresh water and food and whatnot. In fact, there's a little section about provisions right about here that might be nice to read up about what they had to bring on these voyages. Okay, now the trip, like I said, he was an unbelievable navigator, and he brought the ship, and he knew all about currents and winds and stuff like that, and this was a great way to travel through the Atlantic because of the the different currents and wind patterns. And right about here, in fact, this is something a little bit extra. We can talk about the Sargasso Sea, which kind of is a big area of within the ocean. They call it like a sea within the ocean, and it's just full of seaweed. And that was very disconcerting or kind of confusing to a lot of the people on board, including Columbus, because they thought they must be nearing land, but this is just a big sea of seaweed right here that they had to travel through. And it was probably kind of scary, thinking they might get stuck in the weeds and tangled up. But okay, so that's the Sargasso Sea. Maybe we can actually label it. It's not one of the activities, but I thought it'd be fun to put on the map. You can do a little research on the Sargasso Sea. Sargasso. It's like a sea within the sea. Okay, now eventually Columbus did make landfall, and I believe it was in, most people think it might have been in the Bahamas. Okay, so the Bahamas. Maybe we could just kind of highlight those. Let's write the Bahamas. Not to be confused with Bermuda, that little tiny island of Bermuda, but the Bahamas is where Columbus first made landfall. And these are all a lot of little islands in the Caribbean. So many islands. Now on future trips, he would make more extensive trips around Cuba and Hispaniola, and eventually even down through Central America in this area here on future trips. So you can add a little bit of blue along that coastline. Do your best to get around these islands in here. Okay, and let's continue with, let's just show his route. He ended up going all through the Caribbean a little bit. And then coming back, you can see he kind of followed the Gulf Stream, and that kind of pushed him along back toward Europe. You'll see there's a little group of islands right here that he passed through before coming back to Europe, and those are the Azores. Let's put that on the map. Azores. And that's, you can check that off our list right there. You can also check off Canary Islands. Okay, and let's finish off from the Azores right back to Europe. So that was probably the most famous exploration of all time. And it opened up a lot of travel from additional explorers getting over to what they call the New World, okay? And now as we get into, if we want to look at North America, you'll see that a lot of explorations took place in North America. Let's just label the two big mountain ranges in North America, okay? We've got the Rocky Mountains, and the Appalachian Mountains. I might have to, maybe I'll put a little leader line and write it up here. those are the Appalachians, and these are the Rockies. I don't think I put this in the list of lakes, but I believe this is the oh no, it is in the list. You can write Great Lakes right here. We won't label them individually. We'll just put Great Lakes. Those are the 5 Great Lakes. Let me, just to make those stand out a little better, let me put a little blue in there. Lake Superior, Lake Michigan. You've probably studied these already. Lake Huron, Lake Erie, Lake Ontario. Okay, and you can, maybe for these mountains we could just kind of give it a nice little shading like that. They're pretty hard to color individually. I'll try to do it a little bit neater in the Rockies. Okay, a little bit of brown too, maybe. Just put a little background color, not too dark. Okay, so we're getting through a lot of our physical features. Let's check off those 2 mountain ranges. Rocky Mountains and the Appalachian Mountains. Oh, here's the Great Lakes. I can check that off. Okay, so that's great. And we've got the Bahamas, the Sargasso Sea, the Bahamas, yeah. And, oh, Canary Islands, Azores. Did I check off those? Yeah. Okay. And let's put a little bit more blue along that North American coastline. Let's see, Florida. If you look closer, you'll see some additional explorers highlighted. Ponce de Leon, Cortez, Coronado, Lewis and Clark, another famous one that came later. Henry Hudson, right up here too. Oh, and even before Columbus, it's funny, most people think of Columbus as being the first to reach the North American continent, but I think about 400 years before him, the Vikings actually made landfall up here in, I think it might have been maybe Labrador, some part of Canada up here, and they did not create the same excitement that Columbus did with his trip, but the Vikings actually were, I believe, the first people to reach from Europe to North America. Okay, so well, we're getting along pretty good on this map. We've got a bunch more physical features in North America. I will continue to do a little bit more of the coastline now, and you guys work on that too. Okay, good job, thanks.